What turns a dead man walking into a fighter worth following? The question hung in the September air of Verde Valley, Arizona Territory, as invisible as the morning mist rolling off Oak Creek. It was 1881, and the answer would come in a way no one expected. Thomas Brennan knelt before a weathered wooden cross. The dawn light barely touched the cemetery on the hill, leaving most of the graves in shadow. His knees pressed into earth that had gone hard from summer heat. In his calloused palm rested a gold wedding band, thin and worn. He had carried it to this place every Sunday for 20 months, unable to put it back on his finger, unable to leave it behind. The cross bore simple letters, already fading. Elizabeth Brennan, beloved wife and mother. The dates told the story his voice could not. She had been 32 when scarlet fever took her. Their daughters had been too young to understand why Mama stopped waking up. Tom had been too broken to explain. He placed 3 wildflowers at the base of the cross. Yarrow for healing, though no healing had come. Indian paintbrush for memory, though forgetting would have been kinder. Desert marigold because Beth had loved the color yellow, and yellow was the only brightness left in a gray world. His lips moved, but no prayer came. Prayer had died with her, drowned in the same fever that burned through their bed, while he held her hand and begged God for mercy. God had not answered then. Tom saw no reason to ask again now. The sun crept higher. The valley below began to glow red rocks catching fire in the early light. Tom stood knees cracking and walked back to his horse without looking at the grave again. Looking back only made the leaving harder. By the time he reached Brennan Ranch, the sky had turned from purple to pale blue. The house sat in a hollow between 2 hills, small and solid. 195 acres of stubborn land, creek water that never ran dry. Grass enough for 40 head of cattle. It should have been everything a man needed. Tom tied his horse and walked to the well. The bucket came up half full. Another thing that needed fixing, another task he would face alone like he faced everything now. Inside, Sarah stood at the stove. At 13, she moved through the kitchen with her mother's quiet efficiency. Her brown hair was pulled back the way Beth used to wear it. She glanced at her father, but did not smile. Neither of them smiled much anymore. Morning, Pa, morning. Emma sat at the table, honey jar open spoon in hand, 9 years old and still hopeful in ways that hurt to watch. She looked up with Beth's green eyes. "Did you tell Mama about the new calf I told her?" Emma nodded, satisfied. She believed her mother could hear them from wherever she had gone. Tom did not have the heart to tell her he was not sure of anything anymore. They ate cornmeal in silence. Sarah had added salt but no butter. They were running low. Tom made a mental note to ride into Cottonwood before week's end. The list of things he needed to do grew longer every day. The energy to do them grew shorter. After breakfast, Sarah cleared the plates. Emma fetched water. Tom stepped onto the porch and looked at the work waiting. Fences down, barn door crooked. The garden where Beth used to grow healing herbs now choked with weeds. He had let it die because tending it meant remembering, and remembering meant feeling, and feeling was the one thing he could not afford. He reached for his work gloves and caught Sarah watching him through the window. Her expression was careful, guarded. But he saw the question in her eyes, the same question she asked every day without words. "When will you come back to us, Pa? When will you be more than a ghost in your own house?" He had no answer for that either. By mid-morning, Tom was 3 fence posts deep into repairs when he heard laughter. The sound stopped him cold. He could not remember the last time he had heard his daughters laugh. He looked toward the house and saw them walking east, each carrying a woven basket. Emma skipped ahead in her yellow dress. Sarah followed at a steadier pace. "Where are you going?" Sarah turned. "To Oak Creek, Pennsylvania. Emma wants to pick berries. Oak Creek was 2 miles away. Beth used to take the girls there every autumn. It had been their tradition." Tom felt the memory rise sharp and unwelcome. But he saw the hope in Emma's face, the way she clutched her basket like it held something precious. "Be back by 3. Stay together." "We will." They walked away, Emma chattering, Sarah nodding patiently. Tom watched until they disappeared over the rise. He told himself they would be fine. Sarah was responsible. The land was safe. But the land was never truly safe. And 2 miles away, beneath the cottonwood trees at Oak Creek, something waited that would change everything. Sarah and Emma walked side by side, boots crunching on dry grass. The morning had turned warm clouds, breaking apart to let the sun through. Emma hummed a tune their mother used to sing, something about a bluebird and a willow tree. They reached Oak Creek just past noon. The cottonwoods formed a canopy overhead, leaves turning gold and orange. Water ran shallow over smooth stones. Blackberry bushes crowded the far bank, heavy with fruit. Emma ran ahead. Look how many there are. Sarah set down her basket and began sorting the ripest berries. Emma darted from bush to bush, eating as many as she saved. For a few minutes, there was only peace. Water sounds, leaf rustle, the hum of insects in warm air. Then Emma stopped. "Sarah, do you hear that?" Sarah paused. At first, nothing. Then faint and distant a low moan. "Human, what is that?" "Stay here." But Emma was already moving toward the sound. They followed it downstream past a bend where the creek widened, and there at the base of a rocky slope they found her. A woman slumped against a fallen cottonwood, her legs stretched out. Her hair was long and black, tangled with dust and dry grass. She wore buckskin torn at the shoulder. Her right leg bent at an angle that made Sarah's stomach turn. Blood soaked the fabric around her calf. An Apache woman. Sarah froze. Her mind raced through every story she had heard. Raiders, warriors, danger. But then the woman opened her eyes. They were dark and deep, filled with pain and something else. Acceptance, maybe. She looked at the two girls and whispered in clear English, "Water, please." Emma took a step forward. Sarah grabbed her arm. "Emma, no. But she's hurt. She's Apache. So she's dying, Sarah. Look at her." Sarah looked. Blood pooled beneath the woman's leg. Her breathing came shallow. Her lips were cracked and pale. Dying was the right word. Emma's voice came quiet. "Mama would help. That's who we are." Sarah had to choose. Fear or compassion. Safety or courage. The girl she had been before their mother died, or the girl she was becoming after. She thought of Beth, of the way she had set a stranger's broken arm once, of the way she had delivered a neighbor's baby in a snowstorm, of the way she had taught Sarah that healing was not about who deserved it. Healing was about what was right. Sarah released Emma's arm. "Get water. There's a canteen by the baskets." Emma ran. Sarah knelt beside the woman, hands shaking. She had watched her mother tend wounds 100 times. Clean it. Stop the bleeding. Keep them calm. The woman's eyes followed her. "You are kind. Like someone who learned from love." Sarah blinked. "How do you know about my mother? I see it in your hands. Gentle. Careful. You learned from someone who understood healing." Emma returned with the canteen. Sarah poured water into the woman's mouth. She drank, coughing, then settled back. "My name is Kai. It means eternal blossom in my language. I'm Sarah. This is Emma." Kai looked at Emma, then back to Sarah. "You should leave me here. If your people find you with me, there will be trouble." Emma's voice came firm. "We're not leaving you. Then you are braver than most." Sarah pulled off her shawl and tore it into strips. She bound the wound as tightly as she could, trying not to think about the blood. Kai did not cry out, but her jaw clenched with every touch. "Can you stand?" Kai tried. Her leg buckled. Sarah caught her. "We have to get you to our ranch. Our father can help." Kai shook her head. "Your father will not want an Apache in his house." Emma looked at Sarah. "Will he?" Sarah did not know. Their father had not wanted much of anything in 20 months. But she knew one thing. If they left this woman here, she would die. And Sarah could not live with that. He'll help. He has to. Together, the two girls lifted Kai. She was lighter than Sarah expected, body lean despite the injury. They moved slowly. Every step made Kai's breathing more labored. Twice they stopped so she could rest. But she did not complain. She only whispered, "Thank you," over and over, like a prayer. By the time they crested the hill above Brennan Ranch, the sun was dropping toward the western horizon. Sarah saw her father in the distance, riding back from the north pasture. He saw them at the same moment. Even from 100 yards away, Sarah could see him go rigid in the saddle. Tom Brennan stared at the sight before him, his two daughters supporting a wounded Apache woman between them. Blood on their clothes, fear and determination on their faces. Every instinct screamed danger. Threat? Get the girls away! But then he saw the way Emma looked at him, pleading, trusting, believing he would do the right thing. And he thought of Beth. The last words she had spoken before fever took her voice. "Don't let the ranch die with me, Tom. And don't let yourself die either." He had failed the second part. He knew that. He had died with her in every way that mattered. But maybe he could stop failing now. Tom dismounted and walked toward them. Up close he could see the extent of the woman's injuries. The blood, the pallor, the way she trembled with exhaustion. She met his eyes without fear, just quiet acceptance of whatever he decided. Pa, Sarah said, "She needs help." Tom looked at the woman, then at his daughters, then back at the woman. "Get her inside." Relief flooded Sarah's face. Emma smiled. Together they guided Kai into the house. Tom followed, his mind already working. Boil water, clean the wound, stitch if necessary. He had done it before during the war when bullets were common and doctors were rare. He had not done it since Beth died, had not touched another person with the intent to heal. But he would do it now, because his daughters were watching, and because somewhere he hoped Beth was watching too. Inside, Tom cleared the table with one sweep. Plates clattered to the floor. He did not care. Sarah and Emma eased Kai onto the surface. She lay back, breathing shallow. Tom rolled up his sleeves. Sarah, whiskey from the cabinet. Emma, boil water. Clean cloth in the chest by the fireplace. Both girls moved without question. Tom leaned over Kai, examining the wound. Deep, jagged, likely from a fall onto sharp rock. The bleeding had slowed, but not stopped. Infection would come fast without treatment. This will hurt. Kai opened her eyes fully. I have known worse pain. Tom believed her. Sarah returned with the whiskey. Tom poured some into a cup. Drink. Kai drank. The whiskey made her cough, but color returned to her cheeks. Tom poured the rest over the wound. Kai's body went rigid, but she did not scream. Just a sharp breath, hands gripping the table edge. Emma brought boiled water and cloth. Tom dipped the cloth, wrung it out, began cleaning with careful motions. Blood washed away, revealing torn flesh beneath. He would need to stitch. His hands shook as he threaded the needle. It had been so long. He closed his eyes, steadied himself, remembered Beth's voice. You're good at this, Tom. You have gentle hands. He opened his eyes and began. Kai watched the ceiling, jaw clenched. Sarah held one of her hands. Emma held the other. The three of them formed a chain of quiet strength. When Tom finished, he wrapped the wound in clean cloth and stepped back. Not perfect, but it would hold. Kai let out a long breath. Thank you. Tom walked to the basin and washed his hands, watching the water turn pink. Behind him, Sarah spoke. Where will she sleep, Pa? The question hung in the air. The house had only 2 rooms. The main room where they stood, and the small bedroom where Tom had slept alone for 20 months. The bed where Beth had died. Tom turned. His eyes went to that door, the one he kept closed. She can have my bed. I'll sleep out here. Sarah's eyes widened. Pa, are you sure? Tom nodded. He walked to the bedroom and opened the door for the first time in weeks. He looked at the bed, the quilt Beth had sewn, the pillow that still held a faint smell of her lavender soap. He lifted Kai as gently as he could. She weighed almost nothing. He carried her into the room and laid her on the bed, arranging the quilt over her. Kai looked around. Her eyes landed on the small photograph on the dresser, Beth smiling, holding baby Emma. Your wife? Yes, she had kind eyes, like your daughter's. Emotion choked him. Yes, she did. I am sorry for your loss. Tom looked at this stranger, this woman who had every reason to hate people who looked like him. He saw only compassion. Get some rest. He left the room and stepped onto the porch. Night had fallen. His heart pounded. His hands still trembled. He had just put an Apache woman in his dead wife's bed. The neighbors would call him a fool. Some would call him worse. But when he closed his eyes, he saw Sarah's face. The pride in her expression when he said yes. The relief in Emma's smile. For the first time in 20 months, his daughters had looked at him like he was their father again. Maybe that was enough. Inside, Sarah and Emma sat by the fire. Sarah stared into the flames. Emma leaned against her sister. Do you think Pa's going to be okay? Sarah thought about the way their father's hands had shaken while stitching, the way he had carried Kai so carefully, the way he had opened the door to the room he could not bear to enter. I think tonight is the first step. Toward what? Toward something better. In the bedroom, Kai lay awake. She looked at the photograph of the woman who had once slept in this bed. She whispered a prayer in her own language, a prayer for the dead, and a prayer for the living. Then she closed her eyes and let darkness take her. Tomorrow everything would begin. Morning broke cold and clear. Tom woke on the floor by the fireplace, his back stiff, neck aching. He had slept in his clothes rifle within reach. Old habits from the war. He sat up slowly, listening to the house breathe around him. The bedroom door was still closed. He could hear nothing from within. For a moment, panic touched him. What if she had died in the night? What if he had failed again, like he had failed Beth? He stood and crossed to the door, opened it quietly. Kai lay beneath the quilt, breathing steady. Alive. Relief surprised him with its intensity. In the main room, Sarah was already awake, kneading dough for breakfast biscuits. She glanced at him, but said nothing. Emma still slept curled on blankets near the fire where the warmth lingered. Tom poured coffee from the pot Sarah had made and stepped outside. The valley stretched before him, endless and indifferent. Somewhere out there, people would soon hear that Tom Brennan had taken in an Apache woman. Word would spread, judgment would follow. Let it come, he thought. He was done running from hard choices. He spent the morning checking livestock, repairing what he could. By noon, Sarah called him in for lunch. When he entered, he found Kai sitting up in bed, back against the wall. Her face was pale, but alert. "You should be resting." Kai shook her head. "I have rested enough. I need to see the wound, to make medicine." Tom frowned. "I cleaned it, stitched it. I am a healer. I know my own body. The wound will fester without proper treatment." Sarah stepped forward. "What do you need?" Kai's eyes moved to the dried herbs hanging from the rafters. "Sage, yarrow, golden seal, you have these?" Sarah nodded. "Mama used to grow them. Then your mother understood medicine." Kai looked at Tom. "May I use them?" Tom hesitated. Those herbs were Beth's. He had not touched them in 20 months. But he saw the logic in Kai's request. And he saw something else. She was not asking for pity. She was asking to take care of herself. "Use what you need." Sarah gathered the herbs and brought them to Kai. Under her direction, Sarah crushed sage and yarrow into a paste, mixing it with honey from the cupboard. Kai watched carefully, correcting when needed. "You have good hands, like your mother. Mama taught me before she got sick. Then she gave you a gift. Healing is sacred work." Emma, now awake, crept closer. "Can you teach me too?" Kai smiled. "If your father allows." All eyes turned to Tom. He stood by the door, arms crossed, watching this exchange. He thought of Beth teaching Sarah to make poultices, the quiet pride in her voice when Sarah got it right. "I allow." Emma beamed. Kai directed her to fetch clean cloth. Together, Sarah and Emma applied the paste to the wound under Kai's guidance. When they finished, Kai lay back, exhaustion clear on her face. "Thank you." Tom motioned for the girls to leave the room. They obeyed reluctantly. He stood in the doorway, uncertain. "You did not have to help me. I did." Why? Tom looked at her. "Because my daughters are watching, and I want them to see a man who does the right thing, even when it's hard." Kai's eyes softened. "Your wife, she was the same kind of person." His chest constricted. "Yes, then you honor her memory by continuing what she believed." Tom turned away before she could see his face. He walked outside, past the porch, past the barn, all the way to the small cemetery plot on the hill. He stood before Beth's grave and spoke aloud for the first time in months. "I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know if this is right or stupid or dangerous. But those girls, our girls, they looked at me like I was their father again." He stopped, voice breaking. "I forgot what that felt like." The wind stirred dry grass. No answer came, but Tom felt something loosen in his chest, a knot he had carried for 20 months. He walked back to the ranch. That afternoon, as he mended fence along the eastern boundary, he heard hoofbeats. His hand went to the rifle strapped to his saddle before he recognized the rider. Jake Porter, his neighbor older by 6 years, weathered and lean. His face was grim. "Tom, got a minute, always." They walked away from the fence line, out of earshot from the house. Jake pulled off his hat and turned it in his hands. "Word spreading about the Apache woman you took in. That was fast. This valley's small. And when a man does something unexpected, people talk." Jake paused. "Clayton Blackwood's been asking questions." Tom's stomach tightened. "What kind of questions?" "The dangerous kind. He was in town last night. Told folks you're harboring an enemy. Said it's a threat to everyone." Clayton Blackwood. Tom knew the name. Everyone in Verde Valley knew it. Cattle baron. Land grabber. The kind of man who took what he wanted and crushed anyone who stood in his way. "What's Clayton's interest in this?" Jake met his eyes. "Same interest he has in everything. Your land. Oak Creek runs through your property. Only reliable water source for 20 miles. Control that you control the route to Prescott. He's been trying to buy you out for 2 years. I'm not selling. I know. So now he's got a new angle. Apache woman gives him an excuse. Makes you look reckless, dangerous. Puts pressure on you from the community." Jake stepped closer, voice dropping. "Tom, he burned Jacob Cooper's barn 2 nights ago. Left a message saying anyone who stands with you is next." Tom's blood went cold. "Anyone hurt?" "No, they got out. But Tom, this is just the beginning." Clayton doesn't bluff. As if summoned by his name, the sound of multiple horses reached them. Tom turned and saw riders approaching from the south. 8 of them. The lead horse was a big roan gelding. Clayton Blackwood. He was a large man, broad-shouldered and thick-necked. A scar ran from his left eye to his jaw, pale and raised. He claimed it was from the Apache Wars. Most figured he gave it to himself for the story. He wore fine clothes, a black coat despite the heat, a show of wealth and power. His men fanned out behind him, all armed, all watching. Clayton reined in his horse 10 feet from the porch. He did not dismount. That was intentional. Staying mounted meant looking down, meant dominance. "Brennan, heard you got yourself a visitor." Tom did not reach for his rifle, though every instinct screamed too. News travels fast. Small valley. When a white man harbors an Apache woman, people talk. She was hurt. I helped. That's all. Clayton leaned forward in his saddle. That's all you know what they did to settlers last year? Burned houses, killed families, and you bring one into your home. She's one person, not a war party. One person today, 10 tomorrow. You're setting a dangerous precedent, Brennan. Tom's jaw tightened. My land, my choice. Clayton's smile was cold. Funny you mention your land. I've been trying to buy it from you for 2 years. You always said no, but maybe now with your guest, the neighbors will pressure you, make you an outcast. Then you'll have no choice but to sell. Tom understood now. This was not about Kai. This was about water rights, about control, about a man who wanted everything and would use anything to get it. My land's not for sale. Everything's for sale, Brennan. It's just a matter of price. Or pressure? Clayton pulled his horse around his men, following suit. 7 days. Send her away, or things get difficult for you and your daughters. The threat hung in the air like smoke. Clayton and his men rode off, dust rising in their wake. Jake stood beside Tom, both watching them disappear. What are you going to do? Tom looked back at the house. Through the window he could see Sarah and Emma, with Kai, all three of them working together over something. A simple scene, a moment of ordinary kindness in a world that seemed determined to punish it. I'm going to fight. That evening, after Jake had left with promises to spread word quietly among those who might stand with them, Tom found himself alone with Kai. Sarah and Emma had gone to bed early, exhausted from the day's tension. Kai had insisted on coming to the main room. She sat in a chair by the fire, her injured leg propped on a stool. Tom sat across from her, the space between them filled with things unsaid. I should leave. Kai's voice was quiet but firm. I am bringing you trouble. Tom shook his head. You didn't bring anything. Clayton's been after my land since before you came. This is just his excuse. But I make it worse. Tom looked at her. Maybe. But sending you away won't change Clayton, and I won't let fear decide for me anymore. Kai studied him in the firelight. You are braver than you believe, or stupider. She almost smiled. Perhaps both. The silence that followed was different from the silences Tom had known for 20 months. Those had been empty, hollow things. The silence was full. It held the crackle of fire, the soft breathing of sleeping children, the presence of another person who understood loss. Kai spoke again, softer now. In my tribe, there is a saying, we are measured not by what we own, but by who stands with us when we have nothing. Tom thought about Jake Porter, about the promise in the older man's eyes to find others who would help. By that measure, I might be richer than I thought. The night deepened around them. Outside an owl called. Inside the fire burned low. Tom added another log. Watched sparks rise. Tell me about your wife. The request surprised him. For 20 months, people had tiptoed around Beth's memory, afraid to mention her name. But Kai asked directly without fear. Her name was Elizabeth. Beth. She was... Tom paused, searching for words. She was the kind of person who saw someone hurting and had to help. Didn't matter who they were, where they came from. If they were bleeding, she stopped it. If they were sick, she tried to heal them, like your daughters. Tom nodded. Sarah has her practicality. Emma has her heart. Together he stopped again. They're everything good she left behind. Kai's eyes held sympathy without pity. My husband was named Swift Eagle. He died 10 months ago, not in battle, not with honor, just sickness. Fever that would not break. Tom felt the shock of recognition, the same way Kai shook her head. Different fever, same helplessness. I am a healer, and I could not save him. She looked at her hands. These hands that have saved so many, they could not save the one who mattered most. Tom understood that guilt. That rage at your own powerlessness. We are the same, trying to live in the shadow of those we loved. The words settled between them like a bridge. Two people from different worlds bound by the same grief. The same struggle to keep breathing when breathing felt like betrayal. Tom stood. You should rest. Tomorrow we prepare. For what? For whatever Clayton brings. I'm not waiting for him to make the first move. Kai rose carefully, testing weight on her injured leg. It held. Then we prepare together. I will not sit idle while you fight my battle. It's not your battle. It's Clayton's greed. Kai met his eyes. The moment you let me into your house, it became our battle. In my culture, we do not abandon those who show us kindness. Before Tom could respond, the sound of shattering glass cut through the night. He spun toward the window. Orange light bloomed in the darkness. The barn was on fire. Tom grabbed his rifle and ran outside. Flames roared from the hayloft, already spreading to the walls. He could hear the horses screaming inside. Sarah and Emma burst from the house. Tom shouted at them, "Stay back!" But Kai was already moving, limping fast despite her injury. She reached the barn door before Tom threw it open. Smoke billowed out. Inside, 2 horses kicked at their stalls, eyes white with terror. Tom ran and Sarah right behind him despite his orders. Together they opened stalls, drove the horses out into the night. The heat was tremendous. The smoke choked. Above them, burning hay fell like rain. "Get out!" Tom pushed Sarah toward the door. "The roof's going to collapse!" They stumbled into the open air, coughing. Emma ran to them. Behind them the barn groaned, timbers cracking. The roof caved in with a shower of sparks. Tom counted heads. Sarah, Emma. The horses safe in the corral. And Kai, standing apart, rifle in her hands, scanning the darkness. "There," she pointed. 3 riders on the ridge silhouetted against the stars, watching, making sure their message was received. Tom raised his rifle, but they were already gone, melting into the night. He lowered the gun and turned to look at what remained of his barn. 20 years of work, reduced to ash and ember in minutes. Emma started to cry. Sarah put an arm around her, but Tom's eyes went to Kai. She still held the rifle, still watched the darkness. Ready? Unbroken. He walked to her. "You saved the horses." She looked at him. "We saved them. Together." The word hung between them. Together. Not him protecting her, not her being rescued. Together as partners, as equals. From the darkness, hoofbeats again. Tom raised his rifle, but the voice that called out was familiar. "Tom, it's Jake Porter." Jake rode in with another man, older, gray-haired, carrying a medical bag. "Saw the flames from my place. This is Doc Samuel Hayes. He wanted to come." The doctor dismounted. He was near 60, with kind eyes and steady hands. He looked at Kai without fear. "You're the woman everyone's talking about." Kai lowered her rifle. "I am." Doc Hayes smiled. "Good, because I need to talk to you. And to Tom, about Clayton Blackwood." They gathered in the house, the smell of smoke still clinging to their clothes. Emma and Sarah listened from the loft. No one told them to leave. Doc Hayes set his bag on the table and pulled out a leather journal. "I've been Clayton's doctor for 5 years. Treated his men when they got hurt. Saw things. Heard things." He opened the journal. 3 years ago, wells started going bad on the ranches around here. Families got sick. Some died. Everyone thought it was bad luck. Bad water. Jake Porter leaned forward. "But it wasn't. No, it was arsenic. Deliberate poisoning. I found the bottles in Clayton's storage shed when I was treating a man who'd been shot. Had his brand on them, his handwriting on the labels. Why didn't you say something?" Tom's voice was hard. Doc Hayes looked at him. "Because I was afraid. Clayton owns half this valley. He has the sheriff in his pocket. The judge, too. Who would believe me? Who would protect my family if I spoke up?" Tom understood fear, but he also understood that fear unchecked became tyranny. "You're speaking now, because I'm tired of being afraid. And because," Doc Hayes looked at Kai, "because if he can destroy a man for showing basic human decency, then none of us are safe. Today it's you. Tomorrow it's anyone who doesn't bow to him." Sarah's voice came from above. "What do we do?" Doc Hayes closed his journal. "We gather evidence. We find people willing to testify. We force this into the open where Clayton can't hide behind threats." Tom looked around the room, at Jake, who had stood by him, at Doc Hayes, who had chosen courage over fear, at Kai, who had helped save his horses despite her injury, at his daughters, brave and watching. "Not anymore." "We stand together," Jake nodded. "I know others, families Clayton has wronged. If we give them courage, they'll stand. Then we give them courage." Tom's voice was steady. "We have 6 days before Clayton's deadline. 6 days to build something strong enough to stand against him." Emma spoke up from the loft. "Pa, if we fight, do I get to help?" Tom almost smiled. "You're 9. Sarah got her first lesson in shooting at 8. Tom looked at Kai. She met his eyes, and he saw something there. Not romance, not replacement for what he had lost, but partnership, respect. The recognition of 2 people who had survived the worst and were choosing to keep fighting. "Yes, Emma, we all help. This is family business now." Outside, the remains of the barn smoldered. Smoke rose into the night sky, carrying with it the ashes of the old life. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new dangers. But tonight, in this small house, something had shifted. Tom Brennan was no longer a ghost. He was a man preparing for war, and he was not alone. The first day of 7 had passed. 6 remained, and Clayton Blackwood had no idea what he had started. The morning after the fire arrived with cruel brightness. Sunlight revealed what darkness had hidden. The barn was gone, reduced to blackened timbers and ash. The smell of smoke hung over everything like a shroud. Tom stood in the wreckage, nudging charred wood with his boot. 20 years of work. Tools, saddles, winter hay for the cattle, all gone in one night of malice. Emma appeared beside him, small and solemn. She looked at the ruins for a long moment, then spoke. "At least we don't have to clean it anymore." Tom turned to her, shocked. Sarah gasped from the porch, "Emma!" Emma looked up at her father, eyes serious despite the words. Too soon, Tom felt something crack inside him. Not breaking, opening. A laugh escaped, rusty and unexpected. It grew into something real. Sarah stared. Emma grinned. Kai watched from the doorway, leaning on the frame to spare her injured leg. Her eyes held understanding. This was how people survived. By finding light in the darkest moments. By refusing to let the darkness win. "Come on." Tom ruffled Emma's hair. "We've got work to do." They spent the morning salvaging what they could. A few tools that had survived. Nails. Hardware. Sarah and Emma worked side by side, their hands black with soot. Kai insisted on helping, sorting through debris one-handed while keeping weight off her bad leg. By noon, Tom noticed her limping worse than before. Blood had seeped through the bandage on her calf. "You're bleeding." Kai glanced down. The stitches pulled. "I moved too much. Inside. Now." For once, she did not argue. Tom helped her to a chair. Sarah brought clean water and cloth. Tom knelt and carefully unwrapped the bandage. The wound had reopened in 2 places. Not badly, but enough. "This is going to hurt, I know." Tom cleaned the wound again, his hands steadier than they had been 2 days ago. Kai watched him work, jaw tight, but eyes calm. Sarah stood ready with fresh bandages. Emma held Kai's hand. "You have done this before. For others. In the war. A long time ago. And for your wife." Tom's hands paused, then continued. "Yes. When the fever came, I tried everything. Cold compresses, willow bark tea. Held her when she burned, when she shook. Nothing worked." Kai's voice was gentle. "Some battles cannot be won with medicine, only with love. And you gave her that." Tom tied off the new bandage. He looked up at Kai. Their faces were close. He could see gold flecks in her dark eyes, could smell sage and smoke on her skin. "Thank you." "For what?" "For reminding me I'm still capable of caring." The moment stretched between them. Not romance. Something simpler and more profound. 2 wounded people recognizing each other, choosing to keep fighting. Sarah cleared her throat. "Pa Jake Porter's coming up the road. With others." Tom stood and walked to the window. Jake rode at the head of a small group. 5 riders. Tom recognized 3 of them. Ranchers from the valley. Men who had stayed silent when Clayton Blackwood tightened his grip. But they were here now. Tom stepped onto the porch. Jake dismounted, the others following. "Tom, these men want to talk." The first was older, maybe 50, with a weathered face and tired eyes. His name was Henry Walsh. "He owned land north of town. Heard about your barn. That was Clayton's work. Everyone knows it. No one can prove it." Henry looked at the ruins. "We can prove other things. 2 years ago my well went bad. Whole family got sick. My youngest daughter nearly died. I always thought it was bad water." Doc Hayes stepped forward from where he had been waiting in the barn's shadow. "It was arsenic, Henry. Clayton poisoned it to force you to sell." Henry's face went hard. He succeeded. "I sold for half what it was worth because I couldn't afford to dig a new well." A second man spoke up, shorter, stockier, with burn scars on his hands. "Levi Cooper. He burned my barn 3 nights ago. Left a note saying anyone who stands with you is next. I'm tired of being threatened on my own land." One by one they shared their stories. Land seized through intimidation, families threatened, livelihoods destroyed. A pattern emerged. Clayton Blackwood had built his empire on fear. And fear only worked when people stood alone. Jake Porter addressed them all. "We've been alone too long, picked off one by one. But together we're stronger than we think." Tom looked at these men. Scared, but standing. Broken, but not beaten. "What do you need from me?" Henry Walsh met his eyes. "We need someone to stand first. Someone to make it safe for the rest of us. You've already done that by keeping the Apache woman. You've already painted a target on yourself. We stand with you. Maybe Clayton will think twice about attacking all of us at once." Kai's voice came from the doorway. "Or he attacks harder, uses me as justification to destroy all of you." The men turned to look at her, some with curiosity, some with residual fear. But Levi Cooper spoke up. "Ma'am, if Clayton wanted justification to hurt us, he'd find it whether you were here or not. He doesn't need reasons. He just takes what he wants." Kai stepped onto the porch, limping but straight-backed. "Then we give him something he cannot take. Truth, spoken publicly, where the whole valley can hear how Henry asked. A town meeting. Kai's voice strengthened. At the church in Cottonwood. We invite everyone. We speak our stories. We show Clayton he cannot hide behind private threats anymore. Jake nodded slowly. Father Patrick would host it. The church is neutral ground. Tom looked at the assembled men, then at Kai, then at his daughters watching from the window. When tomorrow, Sunday, after service. Jake's jaw set. Give people time to hear about it, to decide if they have the courage to come. And if Clayton shows up with his men, then he shows up in front of God and the whole community. Father Patrick's hand moved to his hip, where no gun hung. Let him try violence in the Lord's house. See how that sits with folks. The meeting broke an hour later, with plans in place. Word would spread quietly. Families who had been wronged. People who remembered what Verde Valley was before Clayton Blackwood bought his way to power. They would come, or they would not. But the invitation would be given. That night Tom could not sleep. He sat on the porch watching stars wheel overhead. Kai found him there near midnight. May I sit? Tom gestured to the empty chair. They sat in silence for a while. The valley breathed around them. Wind in the cottonwoods, distant cry of a coyote. Tomorrow could go very wrong. Kai's voice was quiet. I know you could lose everything. Tom thought about that. About the ranch that had felt like a tomb for 20 months. About the life he had been living that was not really living at all. I've already lost everything that mattered. Beth, my purpose, myself. He looked at Kai. But these last 3 days I've felt something I thought was gone. Hope, agency, the belief that my actions might actually matter. They matter to your daughters. Tom nodded. For 20 months I've been teaching them that life is just survival, that you put your head down and endure. But he paused, you've shown them something different. That you can be broken and still fight back. That kindness isn't weakness. That standing up for what's right is worth the risk. Kai smiled. I have shown them nothing they did not already know. Your wife taught them well. I am just reminding them, maybe. Or maybe we're reminding each other. They sat until the stars began to fade. Neither spoke of the danger coming. Neither voiced the fear that tomorrow might end in violence. Some things did not need saying. As dawn broke, Tom stood. Get some rest. Tomorrow we need you strong. Kai rose too, tested her leg, nodded. Tom. She stopped him at the door. Whatever happens tomorrow, thank you for giving me a reason to believe people can still choose good over easy. He wanted to say something profound, something worthy of the moment. But words failed him, so he just nodded and went inside. Sunday morning arrived cool and bright, the kind of morning that felt sacred even if you did not believe in sacred things anymore. Tom dressed in his only suit, black wool that smelled of camphor and old grief. The suit he had worn to Beth's funeral. Sarah wore her mother's blue dress, altered to fit. Emma wore yellow. Kai wore a simple gray dress that Sarah had given her, one of Beth's that they had modified together. You look, Tom searched for words. You look like you belong here. Kai smoothed the fabric. Thank you. I want to honor your wife's memory, not replace it. You're not replacing anything. He stopped. You're helping us become who we're supposed to be. They rode into Cottonwood in the wagon. Jake Porter and his wife rode alongside. Doc Hayes followed with Henry Walsh and Levi Cooper. A small procession. A tiny army. Saint. Mary's church sat at the edge of town, white-painted wood with a simple cross. People were already gathering, more than Tom expected. 40, at least. Maybe 50. Families, old-timers, young couples. The curious and the convinced. And on the far side of the square, Clayton Blackwood sat on his horse. 15 men flanked him, all armed, all watching. Father Patrick stood on the church steps. He was 61 Irish with white hair and a voice that carried. When he saw Tom's wagon, he raised his hand in blessing. Welcome. All are welcome in God's house. Tom helped Kai down from the wagon. Her hand trembled slightly in his. He squeezed once. She squeezed back. They walked toward the church. The crowd parted. Tom felt eyes on them, heard whispers, some hostile, some curious, some sympathetic. Inside the church was simple. Wooden pews, a small altar, sunlight through plain-glass windows. Father Patrick invited everyone to sit. The pews filled slowly. Tom and his family took seats in the middle. Kai sat beside Sarah, who sat beside Emma, who gripped her father's hand. Clayton and his men did not enter. They stayed outside, waiting. Father Patrick began with a prayer. Then he addressed the assembly. Friends, neighbors, we gather today not for worship, though God is surely present. We gather because our community is troubled, because fear has taken root where trust should grow, because silence has allowed injustice to flourish. He gestured to Tom. Thomas Brennan has asked to speak. and he has brought a guest who wishes to address you. I ask that you listen with open hearts and minds." Tom stood, walked to the front, faced people he had known for years, some who had helped when Beth died, some who had avoided him after, all watching now. "Most of you know me, know I'm not a man for speeches, but 3 days ago my daughters found a woman dying by Oak Creek. They brought her home. I helped her, and for that my barn was burned, my family threatened." He paused. "Let the silence hold. The man responsible sits outside right now, Clayton Blackwood. Some of you have suffered his threats, his manipulation, his greed. You've stayed silent because silence felt safer than speaking." Tom's voice grew stronger. "But silence hasn't kept you safe. It's just made you isolated, easy targets. One by one he's taken what he wanted, because we've let him." Tom looked back at Kai. She rose, walked to join him. The crowd stirred. Some shifted uncomfortably, but no one left. "This woman's name is Kai. She's Apache. She's a healer. She's a widow, and she's a mother who left her daughter behind to keep her safe, just like any of you would." Kai stepped forward. Her voice was clear, accented, but strong. "I know what you have heard about my people, the violence, the blood. Some stories are true. My people have fought, have killed. We fought to protect what little remained of our world." She paused. "But I ask you, what would you do if strangers took your homes, your land, your children? Would you surrender, or would you fight?" The question hung in the air. No one answered. But Tom saw faces change, saw people thinking. Kai continued, "I came to this valley seeking medicine for my daughter. I fell. I was dying. 2 children, Sarah and Emma Brennan, found me. They did not see Apache or white. They saw a human being in pain, and they helped." Her voice grew passionate. "Their father took me into his home, gave me his dead wife's bed, risked everything. Why? Because his wife taught him that healing knows no border, that kindness is not weakness, that we are all the same beneath the skin. We all bleed, we all grieve, we all love." She looked directly at the crowd. "Judge me by my actions. I have healed children in this valley. Ask Ruth Miller about her granddaughter's fever. Ask Henry Walsh about the burn salve I gave his son. Ask anyone I have touched whether I brought harm or help." Ruth Miller stood. She was 55, a widow who ran the general store. Her voice shook but held. "My granddaughter was dying. Fever of 104. Doc Hayes had tried everything." This woman, Ruth pointed at Kai, made a tea from herbs. "Stayed with my granddaughter through the night. By morning, the fever broke. She saved her life." Ruth's voice strengthened. "And you know what else? My husband died 2 years ago. Well, went bad, got sick, wasted away. I always thought it was God's will." She turned to face the window where Clayton sat outside. But it wasn't. It was murder. Clayton Blackwood poisoned our well to force us to sell our land. The crowd erupted in murmurs. Father Patrick raised his hand for quiet. Ruth continued, "I've been too afraid to say it, but I'm done being afraid. That man killed my husband. And he'll keep killing, keep stealing, keep destroying until we stop him." Levi Cooper stood. "He burned my barn. Henry Walsh stood. He poisoned my well." One by one, people rose, shared their stories. Some Tom knew, some he did not. A pattern of abuse, of systematic cruelty, of a man who had terrorized an entire valley into submission. Doc Hayes stood last. He pulled out his journal. "I have documented evidence. Arsenic bottles with Clayton's mark, witness statements, dates and times. Enough to convict him in any honest court." The church doors burst open. Clayton Blackwood strode in, 3 of his men behind him. His face was purple with rage. "This is slander, lies, all of it." Father Patrick stepped forward. "This is a house of God, Mr. Blackwood. You will show respect or leave." Clayton ignored him, pointed at Kai. "You're all being fooled by an Apache. Tomorrow it'll be her whole tribe. They'll kill you in your sleep, and you'll deserve it for being stupid enough to trust her." Kai met his eyes without flinching. "I have no tribe coming. I have only a daughter I wish to bring home to peace. But you," she stepped toward him, "you have spread poison in this valley. Not just in wells, in hearts, in minds. You have made neighbor fear neighbor, made strength into tyranny." Her voice rang out. "Judge me by my hands, they heal. Not by my blood, which is the same red as yours." The crowd was utterly silent. Then Ruth Miller began to clap, slowly. Others joined. The applause grew. Not for Kai alone, for truth spoken, for courage shown. Clayton's hand moved toward his gun. A voice from the doorway stopped him cold. "I wouldn't." A man stepped into the church, tall, maybe 52, badge on his chest. Marshal Owen Grant. He had been in Verde Valley only 2 weeks, sent by the territorial governor to investigate reports of corruption. Clayton had assumed he owned this marshal like he owned the local sheriff. He had assumed wrong. Marshal Grant walked down the aisle, stopped beside Doc Hayes. "I heard enough. Let's talk about evidence, Doctor." Clayton's face went from purple to white. He looked around, saw the crowd united against him, saw his men uncertain, saw the marshal's hand resting on his gun. "This isn't over." "Yes." Marshal Grant's voice was quiet. "It is. You're going to come with me, answer some questions. About wells, about fires, about threats to citizens. And if you're smart, you'll come peaceful." Clayton looked like he might fight. His men shifted. Tom's hand went to his rifle. Jake Porter did the same. But then Clayton saw he was beaten. Not by force, by truth, by community, by people who had finally found the courage to stand together. He turned and walked out. Marshal Grant followed. 3 deputies Tom had not noticed appeared from the crowd. They surrounded Clayton and his men, escorted them away. The church erupted, people talking, crying, hugging, 20 years of fear releasing all at once. Tom found himself surrounded, hands shaking his, voices thanking him, but his eyes searched for Kai, found her with Sarah and Emma, all 3 embraced. He walked to them, his family, new and old, broken and healing, together. Father Patrick raised his voice. "Friends, today we have witnessed truth overcoming lies, community overcoming isolation, love overcoming fear. Let us give thanks," they prayed. Even Tom. For the first time in 20 months, he felt something like faith return, not in God maybe, but in people, in the possibility that good could still win. Outside, the sun was high and bright. Clayton Blackwood sat on his horse surrounded by deputies riding toward Cottonwood Jail. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, a trial, testimony, the hard work of rebuilding what had been broken. But today, Verde Valley had remembered what it meant to stand together, and Tom Brennan had remembered what it meant to be alive. The days following the church meeting moved with careful tension. Clayton Blackwood sat in Cottonwood Jail under heavy guard while Marshal Grant built the case against him. Deputies had arrested 6 of his men. Evidence piled up in the marshal's office above the general store. Doc Hayes' journal, witness statements, the arsenic bottles. But 3 days after the arrest, Clayton escaped. It happened at night. 2 guards found unconscious, their keys missing, cell door standing open. By dawn, Clayton was gone, disappeared into the wilderness like smoke. Marshal Grant's face was stone when he delivered the news to Tom. Money bought guards. Money bought silence. Money bought freedom, at least for now. The valley held its breath, waiting for Clayton to strike back. "Brennan?" "Good timing. I need to talk to you about what happens next." Tom sat. The chair creaked under his weight. Through the window he could see Cottonwood's main street. Quiet, normal, as if the world had not just shifted on its axis. Grant shuffled papers. "I've been reviewing evidence. Doc Hayes gave me his journal. Detailed accounts of the arsenic poisoning. Names, dates, locations. It's damning. But Clayton owns the territorial judge, man named Silas Harding, been in Clayton's pocket for 5 years. If this goes to trial in the usual way, Harding will find some legal excuse to dismiss it. Clayton walks free. Everyone who testified becomes a target." Tom's stomach tightened. "Then what do? We force a different judge." Grant leaned back. "I've sent word to Prescott, requested a special prosecutor from the territorial governor's office. If enough pressure comes from above, they can bypass Harding, bring in someone clean. How long will that take? 2 weeks, maybe 3. Grant met Tom's eyes. "Can you keep your people together that long?" "Keep them brave, because Clayton's still got friends, still got money. He'll be working every angle to break this coalition before the trial." Tom thought about the faces in that church, the fear that had taken courage to overcome. Fear was like a dam. Once broken water flowed free. But dams could be rebuilt. Fear could return. "I can try. But I need help." "You've got it." Grant pulled out a map. "Show me who needs protection. Who's most vulnerable. We'll put deputies on them." They spent an hour planning. Henry Walsh's ranch needed watching, Ruth Miller's store, the Cooper homestead. Anywhere Clayton might strike to send a message. When Tom left, the sun was past its peak. He rode back to his ranch slowly, mind working. 2 weeks, maybe 3. A lifetime when you were waiting for the next blow to fall. At home, he found the place transformed. In 3 days, neighbors had come together to rebuild. The barn's frame was rising again, new timber cutting sharp lines against the sky. Jake Porter was up on a ladder. Levi Cooper worked a saw. Henry Walsh hammered joints. And in the yard, teaching Sarah and Emma how to weave a basket from willow reeds, sat Kai. Her leg was healing well. She still limped, but the wound was closing clean. Doc Hayes had checked it yesterday, pronounced it good work. The old doctor had looked at Tom with something like respect. "You learned well. From the war, you said, and from my wife. She taught me that healing is as much about care as technique." Now, watching Kai's hands move through the reeds, patient and precise, Tom saw Beth's echo, not replacement, continuation. The same spirit of teaching, of passing knowledge forward. Emma looked up and saw him. "Pa, look what Kai's showing us." Tom dismounted, walked over. The basket was taking shape, walls rising in a spiral pattern. "That's beautiful," Kai smiled. "It is Apache design. But baskets are baskets. All people need to carry things. Why not carry them beautifully?" Sarah's basket was neater, more controlled. Emma's was lopsided, but enthusiastic. Both girls were focused in a way Tom had not seen in months. Not just doing busy work, learning something with meaning. "Where'd you learn this?" Sarah asked Kai. "My mother taught me, and her mother taught her. Going back generations, when you weave, you connect to all the women who came before. Their hands guide yours." Emma's voice came soft, like Mama's still helping us through you. Kai's hands stilled, then resumed. "Yes, exactly like that." Tom felt his throat tighten. He cleared it. "Kai, can I talk to you?" They walked away from the girls toward the creek. The water ran shallow, murmuring over stones. Kai found a flat rock and sat testing her leg first. "The marshal says 2 weeks until trial. Maybe 3? Clayton's working to break our coalition. Marshal thinks he'll try something. Of course he will. Men like that do not surrender. They scheme." Tom sat beside her. "I'm worried about the girls. If Clayton can't get to me, he might go after them, to force my hand." Kai looked at him. "You want to send them away. It would be safer for their bodies. But what about their spirits? They have found courage, Tom. They stood in that church. They are learning they can face fear and survive it. Send them away. Now you teach them the opposite. You teach them to run." Tom knew she was right. But the knowledge did not ease the fear coiling in his chest. "I can't lose them. They're all I have left of Beth, all I have left of before." Kai's hand found his. "No, they are all you have of now, of the man you are becoming, not the ghost you were." Her touch was warm, solid, real. Tom looked at their joined hands, brown and white, scarred and calloused, both marked by loss and work and survival. "When this is over," he said quietly, "what will you do?" Kai was silent for a long moment. "I do not know. In Apache territory, I am widow of Swift Eagle, mother of Nady, healer. Here I am stranger, guest, borrowed time in a borrowed dress. You could stay." The words came before Tom could stop them. "Bring Nady here. Make this home." Kai turned to look at him fully. "Why would you offer this?" Tom searched for words, found only honesty. "Because these last days I've felt alive again. Not because I've forgotten Beth, but because you've shown me I can honor her memory and still keep living, still choose something new." "And what is this new thing?" Tom met her eyes. "I don't know yet, but I'd like to find out. With you, if you want." The moment stretched between them. Not a proposal, not a promise, just an opening, a possibility. Kai's answer came soft. "I would like that too." They sat by the creek until the sun began its descent, then walked back to the house together, not holding hands, not lovers. Just two people choosing to walk the same direction. That evening, Father Patrick arrived with news. Tom invited him in. Sarah made coffee. Emma brought out the last of the honey cake Ruth Miller had sent over. Father Patrick sat heavily. He looked older than his 61 years, tired, but his eyes were bright with purpose. "I've been doing some digging into Clayton's past. Thought it might help the case. What did you find?" The priest pulled papers from his satchel. "Clayton Blackwood wasn't always Clayton Blackwood. 20 years ago, he was Clayton Blackwell, sergeant in the cavalry during the Apache campaigns. He spread documents on the table. Service records, court-martial papers, witness statements yellowed with age. He was stationed at Fort Verde, part of the units that Father Patrick paused, that committed atrocities against Apache villages. Women, children, elders, things I cannot speak of in polite company." Kai's face had gone still. "Carved from stone." Tom reached for her hand under the table. She gripped it hard. The priest continued. "He was court-martialed for excessive brutality. Even by the standards of those dark times, what he did was beyond acceptable. They discharged him dishonorably, changed his name, moved here, and built himself into a cattle baron through intimidation and violence." Why wasn't he hung? Jake Porter asked from the doorway. Politics. His commander wanted it quiet. Didn't want to draw attention to what else was happening, so they just let him go, turned him loose on decent people. Kai spoke, voice barely above a whisper. My husband's village. 10 years ago. Burned. 23 killed, women and children among them. The survivors spoke of a white soldier with a scar who laughed while he worked. Father Patrick's face was grave. I cannot prove it was him, but the timing matches, the location matches, and Clayton got his scar around that time. The room fell silent. Tom felt rage building, not hot, cold, the kind that calcified into purpose. This goes into evidence, all of it. It might not be admissible in court. Too old. No direct proof linking him to that specific raid. Then we make sure everyone knows anyway. Tom's voice was iron. Let the people of this valley understand exactly who they've been bowing to. Let them see the monster behind the money. The next morning, Tom rode into Cottonwood, copied Father Patrick's documents, posted them on the church board, the general store, the saloon, anywhere people gathered. The reaction was immediate. Shock, disgust, anger. Clayton had presented himself as a war hero, a man scarred in noble service. The truth was poison to that image. By noon, more people had come forward. A woman whose sister disappeared after Clayton visited their homestead. A man who witnessed Clayton shoot an unarmed drifter and claim self-defense. 20 years of hidden crimes crawling into light. Marshal Grant added it all to his files, building a case so overwhelming no corrupt judge could ignore it. But Clayton was building something too. Tom did not see it coming. None of them did. It happened on the 6th day after the church meeting. Emma had asked to check the snares she had set by the creek. Rabbit was getting scarce with all the people working on the barn. Sarah had gone with her. They left just after dawn. By mid-morning, only Sarah returned. She ran into the yard, face white, breathing hard. Tom dropped his hammer and ran to her. What happened? Where's Emma? Sarah's voice shook. She was right behind me. I was checking the first snare. She went to the second one. When I turned around, she was gone. Gone, no tracks, no sound, nothing. Just gone. Tom's blood turned to ice. He grabbed his rifle. Jake and Levi were already moving. Kai emerged from the house, face tight. How long? 20 minutes. Maybe less. They spread out. Searched the creek bank, the willows, the rocks. Found Emma's basket overturned, the snare torn from its setting, and in the dirt boot prints. Too large for a child. A man's prints, leading to hoof prints. 3 horses, coming in fast, leaving fast, and pinned to a cottonwood tree with a knife, a note. Tom's hands shook as he pulled it free. Read the words written in rough block letters. Trade the Apache woman for your daughter. Noon tomorrow, Red Rock Canyon. Come alone or she dies. It was not signed. It did not need to be. Tom's world tilted. The paper crumpled in his fist. 9 years old, brave and bright and too young to be caught in this. His baby girl, in Clayton's hands. Kai's voice came from behind him. We go to Marshal Grant, now. Tom could not speak. Could not think past the image of Emma scared, hurt, calling for him. Sarah grabbed his arm. Pa, we get her back. But we do it smart, like you taught us. Her words cut through the fog. Tom looked at his daughter, 13 and steel-spined, so much like Beth it hurt. He nodded, mounted his horse. The group rode hard for Cottonwood. Marshal Grant listened to the story, read the note. His face grew darker with each word. This is kidnapping. Federal crime. Changes everything. Can you get her back? Tom's voice was raw. Grant stood, started checking his weapons. We can try. But if we go in, guns blazing, Clayton will kill her to spite us. We need to be surgical, precise. What do you need from me? Your trust and your patience. Grant looked at Kai. You willing to be bait? Kai's chin lifted. If it saves the child, yes. Tom wanted to scream, to ride to Red Rock Canyon and tear it apart with his bare hands. But Sarah's words echoed. Smart. Do it smart. What's the plan? Grant spread a map on his desk. Red Rock Canyon is narrow, high walls. Only 2 ways in. We put men on the ridges. You and Kai ride in like the note says. When Clayton shows himself, we surround him. No escape. What if he shoots first, then we shoot back? And we're better positioned. Grant's eyes were hard. But I don't think he will. He wants to gloat, wants to break you publicly. That arrogance is our advantage. Tom looked at Kai. She met his gaze, nodded once. We do this together. Her voice was steady. For Emma, for all our daughters. The word choice did not escape him. Our daughters, not his, ours. A family forged in crisis, tempered by fire. They spent the rest of the day preparing. Grant deputized Tom, Jake, Levi, and 6 others, gave them positions on the canyon rim, went over signals, contingencies. As the sun set, Tom found himself alone with Kai. They stood outside the marshal's office watching the sky turn orange and gold. "If this goes wrong," Tom started. Kai cut him off. "It will not go wrong. We are smarter. We are together. We will bring Emma home." "How can you be so sure? Because the alternative is unthinkable." "So I do not think it." Tom almost smiled. "That simple. That absolute. Thank you for standing with us, for risking yourself." Kai turned to him. "Tom Brennan, do you not understand yet? This is not your fight that I am helping with. This is our fight. Emma is my daughter too now. I claimed her when I taught her to weave, when I held her hand while you stitched my leg. Family is not only blood, it is choice." Tom pulled her close, felt her arms come around him. They stood that way as darkness fell. 2 people who had survived the impossible, who had found each other when all seemed lost, now fighting to keep what they had found. Tomorrow would bring violence. Tomorrow would test every plan they made. But tonight, they had each other. And sometimes that was enough to keep the darkness at bay. Somewhere in Red Rock Canyon, Emma waited. Scared, but not broken. Her father had taught her to be brave. Her sister had taught her to be strong, and Kai had taught her that family comes in forms you do not expect. She would hold on, because that is what Brennan women did, and her family was coming. Dawn came too fast. Tom had not slept. He sat on the porch, threw the night rifle across his knees, watching the eastern horizon for light that would bring the reckoning. Sarah sat beside him, silent. Neither spoke. Words felt useless against the weight of what was coming. Inside, Kai prepared. She had insisted on dressing in her own buckskin, mended and cleaned, not the borrowed dress, not the trappings of another woman's life. If she was to be bait, she would be herself. Apache, healer, mother, unashamed. When she emerged, Tom's breath caught. She looked like a warrior from the old stories, straight-backed, fierce-eyed, beautiful in a way that had nothing to do with softness and everything to do with strength. "I am ready." Tom stood. "So am I." Sarah rose too. "I'm coming." "No. Pa, she's my sister, which is why you stay here. If this goes wrong, someone has to be alive to tell the story, to remember us." Sarah's eyes filled, but she did not cry. She nodded once, hugged her father hard, then turned to Kai and hugged her too. "Bring Emma home. We will. Or we will die trying." They rode out at first light, Tom and Kai on horseback. Marshal Grant and his deputies had left hours earlier, moving into position under cover of darkness. The plan was set, every piece in place. But plans had a way of falling apart when bullets started flying. The ride to Red Rock Canyon took 2 hours. They did not speak. There was nothing left to say. Tom's mind kept circling back to Emma, 9 years old. Trapped somewhere in that canyon with men who saw her only as leverage. He tried not to think about what they might have done to her, tried not to imagine her crying for him. Focus, stay sharp, get her back. Kai rode beside him, straight and silent. Once their eyes met, she nodded, he nodded back. A whole conversation in that gesture. We do this together, we do not break. Red Rock Canyon appeared ahead, walls of rust-colored stone rising 200 feet on either side. A narrow passage cutting through the earth like a wound. The sun was high now, nearly noon. Shadows pooled at the base of the cliffs. Perfect places for ambush. Perfect places to hide. Tom reined in his horse at the canyon mouth, scanned the rim, saw nothing. Marshal Grant and his men were up there somewhere, invisible, waiting. He touched his rifle, left it in the scabbard. The note had said, "Come alone." Unarmed would be suicide, but he would not draw first, not with Emma's life hanging in the balance. Kai touched his arm. "Whatever happens, do not trade me for her. Clayton will kill us both and keep Emma anyway. I know. Promise me." Tom looked at this woman who had become family in the span of 10 days, who had brought his daughters back to life, who had reminded him what it meant to choose courage over fear. "I promise. We get Emma and we all walk out, or none of us do." Kai's hand squeezed his arm once, then released. They rode into the canyon. The walls closed around them, blocking the sun. The air was cooler here, damper. Their horses' hooves echoed off stone, every sound amplified, every shadow a potential threat. Halfway in, Tom saw them, 12 men standing in a semicircle, all armed, all watching, and in the center, sitting calm as Sunday, Clayton Blackwood. He looked different. 3 days in jail had not broken him. If anything, he looked more dangerous. Cornered animals fought hardest. He smiled when he saw Tom approach. "Brennan, right on time, and you brought the merchandise." "Where's my daughter?" Clayton gestured. A man stepped aside. Behind him, Emma sat on the ground, hands tied behind her back. Her dress was dirty, her face streaked with tears. But her eyes blazed with fury, not fear. "Pa," she started to stand. The man behind her shoved her down. Tom's hand moved to his rifle. Every instinct screamed to shoot, to kill them all. But 12-2 were bad odds. And Emma was right in the middle. "She's alive." Clayton's voice was pleasant, conversational, like they were discussing weather. "Now here's how this works. You leave the Apache woman. You take your brat. Everyone goes home." Kai spoke up. "How did you get out of jail?" Clayton's smile widened. "Money buys many things. Guards, lawyers, freedom. Did you really think a few farmers and a territorial marshal could keep me locked up? Marshal Grant is not a few farmers. Marshal Grant is a dead man, just doesn't know it yet, along with everyone who stood against me in that church." Tom felt cold rage settle in his gut. "You can't kill everyone. Watch me." Clayton leaned forward. "This valley is mine. Has been for 20 years. A few rebels don't change that. I'll make examples. Burn a few more barns. Poison a few more wells. People will remember why they were afraid. They'll fall in line. And if they don't, then I'll kill them until the smart ones surrender. The casual evil of it. The absolute certainty." Tom understood in that moment that Clayton Blackwood was not just greedy. He was broken. Something in him had died long ago, replaced by appetite and cruelty. Kai dismounted, slowly, hands visible. She walked toward Clayton. "I will stay. Let the child go." Clayton's eyes raked over her, assessing like she was livestock. "You know I've killed a lot of Apache in my time. Men mostly. Warriors, but a few women too. Always wondered what made you people so hard to break. We have already been broken. By men like you. What remains cannot be broken again." Clayton stood, walked toward her, stopped 3 feet away. Tom's hand tightened on his saddle horn. "Not yet, not yet." "You think you're noble?" Clayton's voice dripped contempt. "Coming here, sacrificing yourself. But you're just a squaw. Your people are defeated, scattered. In 20 years there won't be any Apache left. You're the last gasp of a dying race." Kai met his eyes. "Perhaps. But I will die knowing I tried to protect the innocent. You will die knowing you destroyed them. Which of us is truly defeated?" Clayton's hand blurred toward his gun. A shot cracked from the canyon rim. Dirt exploded at Clayton's feet. He froze. Marshal Grant's voice echoed down. "That was a warning. Next one goes through your skull." Clayton looked up, saw rifles pointing down from both sides of the canyon. 20 men at least. Maybe more. His face went from confident to calculating in an instant. "You brought an army." Tom finally spoke. "No, we are an army. Every person you've wronged, every family you've threatened. We stand together now." Movement at the canyon mouth. Tom turned. His heart swelled. Ruth Miller walked in. Behind her, Henry Walsh, Levi Cooper, Doc Hayes, Father Patrick, and more. 40 people at least. Farmers, shopkeepers, ranchers, the people of Verde Valley, unarmed but unafraid, walking in to stand witness. They formed a wide circle around Clayton and his men, not threatening, just present, undeniable. Ruth's voice rang clear. "Clayton Blackwood, you have terrorized this valley long enough. Today it ends." Clayton's men looked at each other, at the crowd, at the rifles on the rim. They were outnumbered 5-1. Some of them started lowering their weapons. "Don't you dare." Clayton's voice cracked like a whip. "We still have the girl." The man holding Emma pulled her to her feet, put a knife to her throat. Emma gasped, but did not cry out. Tom's world narrowed to that blade, that hand, that threat. "Let her go, now. Or what you'll shoot. I'll slit her throat before she hits the ground." Kai spoke. Her voice was different. Not the healer, not the gentle teacher. This was something older, harder, the voice of a woman whose people had survived centuries of men like Clayton. "You will not harm that child." Clayton laughed. "And who's going to stop me, you know?" Emma's voice, small but steady. "Me." She moved, faster than anyone expected, dropped her weight. The man holding her stumbled forward. Emma twisted, bit his hand hard. He yelped, dropped the knife. Emma ran, straight toward her father. The man lunged after her. Tom was already moving, off his horse, rifle up. He did not aim at the man, aimed at the ground between them. Fired. The man skidded to a stop. Emma crashed into Tom's arms. He swept her up, checked her for injuries, found none that mattered. "You okay?" Emma nodded against his chest. "I knew you'd come, Pa." Tom set her down behind him, faced Clayton again. "It's over. You've lost." Clayton's face twisted. Hate and rage and something like madness. He pulled his gun. Number, not at Tom, at Kai. He fired. The sound was enormous in the confined space. Kai spun, fell, blood blossomed on her shoulder, bright red against buckskin. Time fractured. Tom heard himself screaming, heard Emma crying, heard Marshal Grant shouting orders, heard the crowd surge forward. Clayton raised his gun again, aimed at Kai's prone form. Tom fired. Not to wound, not to warn, to end. The bullet took Clayton in the shoulder. He dropped. Tom worked the lever. Fired again. Hit Clayton's gun hand. The pistol spun away. Marshal Grant and his deputies came sliding down the canyon walls, surrounded Clayton's men. Most threw down their weapons. A few tried to run, were tackled by farmers who had found their courage. Tom ran to Kai, dropped beside her. She was still breathing. The wound was high, shoulder not chest. Blood, but not gushing. She would live. She had to live. Her eyes opened. Found his. Emma safe. You saved her. We saved her. Together. Tom pulled off his shirt, pressed it to the wound. Doc Hayes was already running over bag in hand. The old doctor knelt, examined the injury with practiced efficiency. Clean through, missed the bone. Lucky. Kai's laugh was pained. I do not feel lucky. You're alive. That's lucky enough. The crowd had surrounded Clayton. He lay on the ground bleeding from 2 wounds, his men disarmed and restrained. Ruth Miller stood over him. This is what happens when you underestimate decent people. We are not strong alone, but together we are unstoppable. Clayton spat blood. This isn't over. I'll buy my way out. I always do. Not this time. Marshal Grant hauled him to his feet. Too many witnesses. Too many crimes. Federal charges now. Kidnapping. Attempted murder. You're going to Yuma prison, and you'll die there. Clayton's eyes went to Tom, to Kai bleeding in the dirt, to Emma safe in her father's arms. For a moment something like comprehension crossed his face. He had lost. Truly lost. Not to force, to community, to people who had finally remembered they were stronger together than apart. The fight went out of him. He sagged in Marshal Grant's grip. Take him away. Deputies led Clayton out of the canyon. His men followed cuffed and defeated. The crowd parted to let them through. Some spat at Clayton's feet. Others just watched in silence, bearing witness to the fall of a tyrant. Doc Hayes finished bandaging Kai's shoulder. She'll need rest. Real rest this time. No heroics for at least 2 weeks. Kai smiled weakly. I think I have earned rest. Emma knelt beside her. You saved me. You saved yourself. You were very brave. I learned from you. And Mama. And Sarah. Brennan women, don't give up. Kai's eyes filled. No, we do not. Tom helped Kai to her feet. She swayed. He caught her. Held her steady. Easy. I've got you. I know. They walked out of the canyon together. The crowd followed. Not triumphant, not celebrating. Just quietly relieved. They had stood up to evil and survived. That was victory enough. Outside the sun was bright and warm. Verda Valley stretched green and gold beneath it. Beautiful. Peaceful. Home. Father Patrick approached. His voice was solemn, but his eyes were joyful. Today we witnessed courage overcome cruelty. Community overcome isolation. We witnessed what is possible when good people refuse to be silent. He looked at Tom and Kai. You two started this, but all of us finished it. That is how it should be. Tom looked at the faces around him. Farmers, shopkeepers, ranchers, his neighbors, his friends, his army. Thank you, all of you. Ruth Miller stepped forward. No, Tom, thank you. You showed us we could stand. We just needed someone to stand first. The crowd began to disperse. People heading home, back to their lives. Changed, but not broken. Tested and proven. Jake Porter clapped Tom on the shoulder. Drinks are on me tonight. Everyone's invited. Marshal Grant approached with Emma by the hand. Found her wandering around, asking if she could keep the knife the bad man dropped. Tom almost laughed. That's my daughter. Emma grinned. It's a really good knife, Pa. You can keep it. But you're grounded for a month for scaring me half to death. Worth it. They made their way back to horses. The ride home was slow. Kai needed to stop twice, to rest. But she never complained, just sat in the saddle face, pale but determined. Sarah was waiting at the ranch. She saw them coming and ran. Hugged Emma so hard, the girl squeaked. Then hugged Kai. Then her father. You did it. We did it. All of us. That night, after Doc Hayes had checked Kai's wound again and pronounced it healing well, after Emma had finally fallen asleep from exhaustion, after the neighbors had left and quiet had returned, Tom found himself on the porch with Kai. She sat carefully favoring her wounded shoulder. The stars were coming out. The valley was peaceful. Thank you, Tom's voice was rough, for putting yourself in danger, for Emma. Kai looked at him. I told you. She is my daughter too now. Family is choice. Tom reached for her hand, found it, held it gently. "When you're healed, I want to ride with you, to bring Nadie home." Kai's breath caught. "You mean that I do. This ranch needs all its daughters under one roof." They sat in silence. Two people who had survived the worst, who had found each other when hope seemed impossible, who had chosen to build something new from the ashes of what was lost. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, a trial, rebuilding, the hard work of turning a community's courage into lasting change. But tonight, Verde Valley was safe. Emma was home, and the ghost of Tom Brennan had finally become a living man again. The stars wheeled overhead, infinite and indifferent. But down here on this porch in this moment, two hearts beat with purpose and hope. And that was enough. The week following, Red Rock Canyon moved in a blur of activity. Kai healed in the bedroom that had once belonged to Beth, tended by Doc Hayes, and the careful hands of Sarah and Emma. The wound closed clean. No fever came. Within 5 days, she could move her arm without wincing. Within 7, she was walking the property, testing her strength. Clayton Blackwood sat in Cottonwood Jail this time, with 3 armed guards watching him day and night. Marshal Grant was taking no chances. The special prosecutor had arrived from Prescott, a sharp-eyed woman named Elizabeth Cortez, who had built her reputation on breaking corrupt men. She reviewed the evidence with methodical precision and pronounced it overwhelming. The trial was set for Monday, 2 weeks after the kidnapping. The entire valley seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see if justice would truly come or if money and influence would win again. Tom spent those 2 weeks preparing, not just gathering witnesses, though there were plenty. 30 people had agreed to testify, but preparing himself for the moment when he would stand in a courtroom and speak truth about a man who had tried to destroy everything he loved. On the Sunday before the trial, Father Patrick held a special service. The church was packed, every pew filled, people standing along the walls. Tom sat with his daughters and Kai, feeling the weight of community around them. Protective, sustaining. Father Patrick's sermon was brief but powerful. He spoke of courage, of the moral duty to stand against injustice, of the way silence enables evil and speech defeats it. Tomorrow some of you will testify. You will speak truth in the face of power. Know that God walks with you, and this community stands behind you. When the service ended, people lingered. No one wanted to go home. There was safety in numbers, comfort in presence. Ruth Miller organized coffee and biscuits. Someone brought a fiddle. Children ran between the pews laughing. Tom found himself standing with Jake Porter and Henry Walsh watching the scene. A community knitting itself back together, finding joy after trauma. Whatever happens tomorrow, this was worth it. Henry's voice was quiet. Seeing people unafraid, that alone was worth it. The trial began at 9 Monday morning. The Cottonwood Courthouse was small, built for minor disputes and land claims. It had never seen anything like this. Territorial Judge Marcus Brenner presided, a severe man in his 60s who had traveled from Prescott specifically for this case. He was known for being incorruptible. Marshal Grant had chosen well. Clayton sat at the defense table with a lawyer from Tucson, a slick man who kept adjusting his collar. He looked confident. Clayton did not. 3 weeks of jail had thinned him. The scar on his face stood out, livid and pale. He stared straight ahead, expressionless. Prosecutor Cortez called her first witness, Ruth Miller. The widow stood, walked to the witness chair, was sworn in. Her voice shook at first but grew stronger as she spoke. "My husband died 2 years ago. We thought it was sickness, bad water. But it was murder. Clayton Blackwood poisoned our well to force us to sell our land." Objection. The defense lawyer stood. Speculation. No proof. Cortez approached the bench, submitted a glass bottle with Clayton's ranch brand stamped on it. Arsenic residue still visible inside. Found in the debris of a burned storage shed. 3 witnesses ready to testify. They saw Clayton's men disposing of similar bottles. Judge Brenner examined the evidence. Overruled. Continue. Ruth told her story. The sickness, the death, the coerced sale. By the time she finished, half the courtroom was in tears. The defense tried to shake her, suggested she was mistaken, confused, grief-stricken. Ruth met every question with calm certainty. "I know what I saw. I know what happened. And I know who profited from my husband's death." One by one, witnesses testified. Henry Walsh described his poisoned well. Levi Cooper, the burned barn. Doc Hayes presented his journal, methodically documenting years of crimes. Father Patrick testified about the court-martial records, the pattern of violence stretching back decades. Then it was Tom's turn. He walked to the stand, placed his hand on the Bible, swore to tell the truth, looked directly at Clayton. He burned my barn, threatened my daughters, kidnapped my 9-year-old child, and held a knife to her throat. The defense lawyer objected repeatedly. Tom kept speaking, calm, clear, unshaken. This man has terrorized Verde Valley for 20 years. He built an empire on fear and blood. And we let him, because we were afraid, because we were alone. Tom's voice strengthened. But we're not alone anymore. We stand together now, and no amount of money or influence can break that. The defense lawyer tried to discredit him, asked about Kai, suggested Tom was motivated by improper relations with an Apache woman, implied his judgment was compromised. Judge Brenner cut him off. Counsel will refrain from character assassination. Stick to the facts of the case. The questioning continued for 3 hours. Tom answered everything. When he finally stepped down, he was exhausted but unbowed. Kai was called next. She walked to the stand with a slight limp, her shoulder still healing. The courtroom fell silent. An Apache woman testifying against a white man. In 1881 Arizona, it was nearly unheard of. She told her story simply. The fall, the rescue, the shelter Tom had given her, the fire, the kidnapping. Her voice never wavered. I am Apache. I know what many here think of my people, but I ask you to judge me by my actions, not my blood. I have healed children in this valley. I stood as bait to rescue a child I love. I bled to protect the innocent. She looked at Clayton. This man tried to use me as a weapon against good people. He failed, because goodness is stronger than hate, and community is stronger than fear. The defense tried to break her, brought up Apache raids, violence, suggested she was lying to protect herself. Kai met every attack with quiet dignity. My people have done terrible things, so have yours. But I am not here to answer for my race. I am here to speak truth about what I witnessed, what I survived. When she stepped down, the courtroom erupted in applause. Judge Brenner's gavel cracked like thunder. Order. This is a courtroom, not a theater. But even the judge's eyes held something like respect when he looked at Kai. The prosecution rested. The defense called character witnesses, men who Clayton had done business with, who swore he was honorable, generous, misunderstood. But when Prosecutor Cortez cross-examined, the facade crumbled. Yes, Clayton was generous to those who did what he wanted. And what happened to those who didn't? Silence, averted eyes. The truth written in their discomfort. The final witness was unexpected. Caleb Blackwood, Clayton's son, 22 years old. He walked to the stand and did not look at his father. I am here to testify against my father. The courtroom gasped. Clayton's face went white. Caleb's testimony was devastating. Years of violence, beatings, threats. He described watching his father poison wells, burn barns, ruin lives, and the court-martial records, the atrocities during the Apache campaigns. My father is not a businessman. He is a monster, and I will not become him. When Caleb finished, he walked out of the courtroom, did not look back. Clayton sat frozen, something broken behind his eyes. The trial lasted 3 days. On Wednesday afternoon, the jury deliberated for 2 hours. When they returned, the foreman stood. On all counts, we find the defendant guilty. The courtroom erupted. Judge Brenner gabbled for order, but even he looked satisfied. He turned to Clayton. Clayton Blackwood, you have been found guilty of murder, arson, kidnapping, attempted murder, and conspiracy. You have terrorized this valley for 2 decades. You have destroyed families, stolen land, killed innocent people. The judge's voice was iron. I sentence you to 20 years hard labor at Yuma Territorial Prison, and I pray you live long enough to serve every day of it. Clayton was led away in chains. As he passed Tom's row, he stopped. Their eyes met. Tom saw no remorse there, no understanding, just empty rage. This isn't over. Tom's voice was quiet. Yes, it is. Deputies pulled Clayton away. The courtroom doors closed behind him, and Verde Valley breathed free for the first time in 20 years. Outside, the sun was bright. People spilled into the street laughing, crying, hugging. Ruth Miller sobbed in Doc Hayes' arms. Henry Walsh shook hands with everyone he passed. Children ran in circles, catching the joy without understanding its source. Father Patrick found Tom, raised his voice over the celebration. Today we witnessed justice, true justice, not the kind that bends to money or power, the kind that serves truth. Tom looked around at the faces, his neighbors, his friends, his community, no longer isolated, no longer afraid. We did this together. Yes, we did. That evening, Tom found Kai sitting by Oak Creek, the same place his daughters had found her 3 weeks ago. She sat on a flat rock, dangling her feet in the water, watching the sun set. Tom sat beside her. For a long moment, they just watched the light fade, painting the valley in gold and orange and purple. It's over. Tom's voice was quiet. Really over. Is it? Kai looked at him. Clayton is gone. But the fear he planted, it doesn't disappear overnight. People will remember. Will be cautious. Maybe. But they'll also remember they can stand. They can win. That matters more. Kai smiled. Yes, it does. Tom took her hand. I want to keep my promise. To bring Nady home. Kai's breath caught. When? Tomorrow. If you're strong enough to ride, I am strong enough. They left at dawn. Tom, Kai, Sarah, and Emma. A family of 4 riding south toward the White Mountain Apache Reservation. The journey took 3 days, following trails Kai knew by heart. On the 3rd afternoon, they crested a ridge and saw the Apache encampment below. Wickiups scattered among cottonwoods, smoke rising from cook fires, children playing by a stream. Peaceful, hidden, safe. As they rode in, Apache warriors emerged, weapons ready. But when they recognized Kai, the weapons lowered. An older man stepped forward, weathered face, kind eyes. This was Red Sky Kai's uncle, 59 years old, and chief of this small band. Kai, you have returned, they embraced. Red Sky looked at Tom and the girls with cautious assessment. This is Thomas Brennan, and his daughters Sarah and Emma. They saved my life. They stood with me against evil men. They are family now. Red Sky studied Tom for a long moment, saw the scars, the weathered hands, the eyes that had seen loss and survived it. You honor my niece. That is good, a small voice interrupted. Mama! A girl emerged from behind Red Sky, 7 years old, dark hair in 2 braids, Kai's eyes in a younger face. She stood frozen for a moment as if afraid this was a dream. Then she ran. Kai caught her daughter, held her tight. Both crying, both whole. Tom felt his throat close. Beside him, Emma wiped tears. Even Sarah's eyes were bright. After a long embrace, Kai pulled back, looked at her daughter. Nady, these are our friends. This is Tom, and his daughters Sarah and Emma. They want us to come live with them. On their ranch. Would you like that? Nady looked at the strangers, scared but curious. Emma stepped forward. Ma, I have a doll collection, and Sarah knows how to catch frogs. And Pa makes really good pancakes. Nady's face lit up. I love frogs, Emma grinned. Then you'll love it there. Red Sky invited them to stay the night. They sat around a fire sharing food. Kai translated stories. Tom listened to the Apache language, understanding nothing but feeling welcome. Before they slept, Red Sky pulled Tom aside. In our culture, when a man wishes to join with a widow, he must prove himself to her family. You have done this by protecting Kai, by standing against injustice. I give my blessing. Tom nodded, moved. Thank you. Treat her well, and her daughter. Or I will find you. Tom almost smiled. I believe you. They rode back to Verde Valley 4 days later. Nady rode with Emma, the 2 girls chattering like they had known each other forever. Sarah rode with Kai, asking questions about Apache healing. Tom rode alone, watching his expanded family with quiet joy. When they crested the final ridge and Brennan Ranch came into view, Nady gasped. That's home. That's home. The girls ran ahead when they reached the yard. Nady wanted to see everything. The rebuilt barn, the garden, the chickens. Emma showed her the room they would share. Nady's eyes went wide. My own bed. Your own bed. That night, with all 3 girls asleep, Tom and Kai sat on the porch. The stars were brilliant, the valley peaceful. Tom reached into his pocket, pulled out a small box. I know it's fast. I know we've only known each other a month. But I also know that in this month, you've changed my life, given me back my daughters, given me back myself. He opened the box. Inside was a simple silver ring, not Beth's ring, that still lay on her grave. This was new, made by the blacksmith in Cottonwood, sized for Kai's hand. I don't know what tomorrow brings, but I know I want to face it with you. Will you marry me? Kai looked at the ring, at Tom, at the ranch that had become home. In my culture, we do not have rings, but I understand what this means to you. And yes, Tom Brennan, I will marry you. He slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. They kissed, not desperate, not passionate, just right. 2 people choosing each other, choosing hope. Father Patrick married them 3 weeks later. The ceremony was small, at the ranch, not the church. The law would not recognize a marriage between white and Apache. But God would. And the community would, and that was enough. Tom wore his suit. Kai wore white buckskin decorated with beadwork Red Sky had sent. Sarah and Emma stood as witnesses along with Nady. Jake Porter gave Kai away. Ruth Miller cried through the whole ceremony. Father Patrick's words were simple. Marriage is a choice, to stand together, to build together, to love not despite your scars, but because of them. Because scars mean you survived, you fought, you earned the right to try again. He looked at Tom and Kai. You have both lost, both grieved. But you have also both chosen to keep living, keep hoping, keep believing that tomorrow can be better than yesterday. That is faith. That is love. Do you, Thomas Brennan, take Kai as your wife? I do. And do you, Kai, take Thomas as your husband? I do. Then by the power vested in me, by God and this community, I declare you husband and wife. They kissed. The small gathering applauded. Nadie and Emma cheered. Sarah smiled through tears. It was perfect, imperfect and real and perfect. The celebration lasted into the evening. Music, food, dancing. Tom found himself pulled into a reel by Ruth Miller. Kai taught the children an Apache game. The valley had seen so much darkness. Tonight, it celebrated light. As the sun set, Tom stood apart for a moment, watching his family, his community, this life he had been given, not the life he expected, not the life he planned, but a good life, a worthy life. Sarah appeared beside him, slipped her hand into his. Mama would be happy for you, Pa. Tom looked at his daughter, 13 years old and wise beyond her years. You think so, I know so. She loved you. She'd want you to keep loving, keep living. Tom pulled her close, kissed the top of her head. When did you get so smart? I had a good teacher. 6 months passed. Spring came to Verde Valley in 1882 with wildflowers and green grass and new calves. Brennan Ranch thrived. The barn stood solid. The garden bloomed with both Western and Apache plants growing side by side. Kai had taken over the healing work in the valley, riding out whenever someone needed help. Her reputation spread. People came from as far as Prescott seeking her skills. Sarah turned 14, talked about becoming a teacher. Emma, still wild and bright, had found her calling helping Kai with healing work. Nadie was 8, speaking both English and Apache fluently, teaching the other children songs from both worlds. She and Emma were inseparable. 3 sisters, 3 daughters, a family woven from loss and choice and love. On a warm April morning, Tom rode to the cemetery on the hill. He knelt before Beth's grave, placed fresh flowers, the same 3 he had brought for 20 months. But this time his heart was light. Beth, I found my way back, like you told me to. I'm living again, not forgetting you, never forgetting, but choosing to keep going. He stood, looked at the valley spread below, at the ranch where his family waited, at the life he had built from ashes. Thank you for teaching me how to love, for giving me Sarah and Emma, for showing me that goodness is worth fighting for. The wind stirred the grass. Somewhere a meadowlark sang. Tom smiled. He walked back down the hill, back to the ranch, back to Kai, waiting on the porch with coffee, back to the girls, laughing in the yard, back to life. That evening, as the sun painted the sky in colors too beautiful for words, Tom sat with his family, Kai beside him, 3 daughters playing tag in the fading light, friends stopping by with news and laughter, a community healed and whole. Sarah looked up from her book. Pa, do you think we'll always remember this? How we fought, how we won. Tom thought about that, about memory and legacy and the stories we tell ourselves. I think we'll remember that we chose courage over fear, community over isolation, love over hate, and that those choices matter. They change things. He looked at Kai. She smiled, squeezed his hand. Emma called from the yard. Pa, come play with us. Tom stood, helped Kai to her feet. Come on, let's go play with our daughters. Our daughters. The words settled warm in his chest. A family made not just by blood but by choice, by standing together when everything tried to tear them apart, by believing that broken people could heal, that lost people could find home, that love could grow even in the hardest soil. They walked into the yard, into the laughter, into the light of a life worth every struggle, worth every scar, worth every moment of doubt and fear. Because in the end, love always is. The stars came out. Verde Valley breathed peace, and the story that began with a dead man walking ended with a living man dancing with his daughters beneath an infinite sky. Some men get one chance at family. Tom Brennan was blessed with 2. Both taught him the same truth. Love is choosing to fight for what matters, every single day, and that is enough. That is everything.